This week, the City of New York and the USTA released 1,000 U.S. Open tickets at $100 each, available only to city residents. And I am going to tell you something in the first minute that most channels covering this will not tell you at all. Those tickets are not for Eala's matches. They are not reserved for her. They are not designated for her. Nobody at City Hall sat down and drew up a plan to get Filipino fans in the door to watch a 21-year-old from Quezon City. The release covers general main draw sessions from August 30th through September 8th, 1,000 tickets, 2 per person, first come, first served, on sale Wednesday morning at 10. That is the truth, and I am giving it to you up front because everything I am about to show you is worthless if you cannot trust the first thing I say. So now sit with the strange part. Within about an hour of that announcement, every major Filipino-American outlet in the country had turned it into an Eala story. Not one of them. All of them. Headlines built entirely around a player who is not mentioned anywhere in the ticket program. Now, you could say that is just aggressive framing, chasing a hot name for clicks. That is what I assumed the first time I saw it. I was wrong. Because when I actually pulled up what one of those $100 tickets contains, line by line, there is an item in there that has nothing to do with price and everything to do with movement. One line. And it quietly does something that no press release mentioned and, as far as I can tell, nobody at the USTA intended. Here is what makes it matter. For the past week, the loudest argument in tennis has been about where this tournament is going to put Eala. A former pro went on ESPN and warned the organizers about it directly. 2 Hall of Famers went after a different Grand Slam over the same thing 7 months ago, and in the middle of that argument, the city dropped 1,000 tickets with that one line in them. I am not going to tell you what the line is yet. I want you to understand the ticket system first. Because if you do not know how a Grand Slam sells access, the reveal will sound like nothing. Once you do know, you will not be able to unsee it. So why did every Filipino outlet in America turn this into an Eala story inside an hour? Because they read the fine print. And the fine print contains one line that changes what this entire week looks like for anyone trying to get in a building to watch her play. To understand why this matters, you need to know how a U.S. Open ticket actually works, because it is not one product, it is 3, and almost nobody reads past the price. Category 1 is the show court seat, Arthur Ashe Stadium, the biggest tennis venue on the planet. When you buy an Ashe ticket, you are buying a specific chair in a specific building for a specific session. That is what most casual buyers think a tennis ticket is. Category 2 is the second stadium, Louis Armstrong. Its own building, its own seats, its own access rules. Some tickets include it, some do not. Category 3 is the grounds pass. This one does not give you a reserved seat anywhere. What it gives you is the right to walk the complex and watch matches on the outer courts, first come, first served, standing room, and open seating. Think of it like a theme park. Some tickets get you into one headline, ride. Some tickets let you walk the whole park. People compare the prices. Almost nobody compares the range of movement, and range of movement is the thing that determines whether you actually see what you came to see. Now let me put a price floor on all of this, because the numbers this year are not gentle. The tickets in the city program all carry a face value of at least $100, and some are worth considerably more than that. On the resale market this year, prices have climbed above $300. The tournament itself is running a record purse of $90 million. This is an expensive event getting more expensive in one of the most expensive cities in the world during its busiest 2 weeks. So, a $100 ticket is not a stunt. In this market, it is a genuine intervention. And now the player everyone is trying to see with it. If you are new to this story, here is Eala in numbers, because the numbers do the work better than adjectives. World number 18, career high, seeded 17th at this U.S. Open. which is the highest seeding any player from the Philippines has ever received at a Grand Slam. 3 weeks ago in Washington, she won her first WTA singles title, and the route there was absurd. Jung Chin-wen, Olympic gold medalist. Leylah Fernandez, the defending champion of that event. Alina Svitolina, the second seed. Naomi Osaka in the semifinal, 4 Grand Slam titles, beaten 6-4, 6-2. Then Jessica Pegula in the final, top seed, where Eala lost the first set, won the second, and closed the third 6-love. 7 wins over top 10 players in this calendar year alone. That is the resume. Now, here is the part that should bother you. None of those numbers tell a scheduler how many people want to watch. Ranking measures how well you play. It does not measure demand. For almost every player on tour, those two things track each other closely enough that nobody has to think about it. A top 5 player draws a top 5 crowd. Fine. The system works. Eala broke that relationship. Her ranking is 18th. Her crowd is not 18th, and it has not been 18th for months, which creates a very specific kind of problem. The tournament has a limited number of large rooms and a scheduling process built on rankings and seedings, and it is now dealing with a player whose demand profile does not match her line on the spreadsheet. If you have ever bought a ticket to something and then discovered that your ticket did not actually get you where you wanted to be, you already understand the next 8 minutes better than most people covering this story. Tell me in the comments if that has happened to you at a tennis event specifically, because I want the people watching to see how common that is before I show them what I found. So hold those 3 categories in your head. Show court seat, second stadium, grounds, pass. Because the 1,000 tickets the city just released do not belong to one of them. They belong to all 3 at once. And that combination is not a discount. It is a loophole. Here is what each $100 ticket actually includes. A reserved seat inside Arthur Ashe Stadium, access to Louis Armstrong Stadium, and a grounds pass. That third item is the entire story. Because look at what that combination does. It does not hand you one room, it hands you the whole property. You have a guaranteed chair in the biggest stadium if you want it. You can walk into the second stadium if you want that instead, and you can wander every outer court in the complex on the same ticket. You are not locked to a court, you are locked to nothing. You can follow any player, anywhere, all day. For a normal ticket buyer, that is just good value. For this specific week, in this specific city, with this specific player, it is something else entirely. Because here is what has been happening in tennis for the past 10 days while nobody was reading ticket terms. Patrick McEnroe went on ESPN before the tournament and said, out loud, on a national broadcast, that the USTA had better make sure they put Eala on big courts. He said the crowd in New York is going to be wild for her. He said it is going to be a great story. And then he said they had better not put her on one of those side courts early in the tournament. That is not praise. Read it again. That is a public warning to a governing body about an operational decision they had not made yet, and he had a reason to worry, which we will get to. So put the two things side by side. On one side, a real fear across the sport that the 17th seed gets buried on a small outer court in the first round because the spreadsheet says a 17th seed does not need a stadium. On the other side, 1,000 tickets that just entered circulation which let the holder walk to any court on the grounds. If Eala gets sent to an outside court, those tickets do not hold anyone in place. Not one person. 1,000 people with a grounds pass can get up from their reserved Ashe seats and walk straight to wherever she is playing. The USTA just put 1,000 tickets into the market that it cannot steer. And I want to be very clear about something, because this is where other channels are going to overreach and I am not going to. Nobody designed this for her. There is no evidence anyone in city government or at the USTA was thinking about Alexandra Eala when this program was built. It is a residence program. It covers many sessions and many players. The Mayor did not do this for a Filipino tennis player. It is an accident. And honestly, that is what makes it worth 20 minutes of your time. Anybody can report a deliberate favor. Almost nobody notices an accidental one, and accidental leverage is usually the most powerful kind because there is no one to lobby to take it back. Now here is the question I want to sit on, because it is the hinge of this whole video. If a $100 ticket already lets you follow her to every court on the grounds, then what exactly has been stopping Filipino fans from watching this player in person? Think about it for a second before I answer, because the obvious answer is money. Tickets are expensive, New York is expensive, and a discount fixes that. That is how 95% of the coverage framed this story, and if you read a headline about it this week, that is the version you got. It is wrong. Money is not the wall. It has never been the wall. The wall is capacity. Physical seats in a physical room. And those are two completely different problems with two completely different solutions, and confusing them is why most people are reading this ticket story exactly backwards. Let me show you what capacity actually looks like when it fails. Because 7 months ago it failed in a way that made 2 Hall of Famers publicly angry, and the people it failed had already spent more money than any of this ticket program will ever save anyone. But a ticket only solves one of the 2 problems standing between this crowd and this player, and the second one is the one no mayor can fix. Everyone read this as a discount story. City helps fans afford tickets. Nice headline. It is also the wrong way round. And Melbourne proved it 7 months ago. January of this year. Australian Open, first round. Alexandra Eala against Alicia Parks. They put it on Court 6. Court 6 holds around 1,500 people. Filipino fans lined up outside for that match, and large numbers of them never got in. And I need you to really absorb who those people were. Melbourne is not a subway ride from Manila. It is not a subway ride from anywhere in the Filipino diaspora except Australia itself. Those fans had already bought flights, booked hotels, taken time off work. They had already spent hundreds, in some cases, thousands of dollars. Money was never their problem. They stood outside a building that physically could not hold them, and they went home. Martina Navratilova called it out publicly, pointing at the lines of supporters who never made it through the gate. Lindsay Davenport said flatly that Eala needed to be on a bigger show court, and she described her as the most famous woman to come out of the Philippines. Not the most famous tennis player, the most famous woman, from a country of over 120 million people, on Court 6. Now watch the pattern repeat with the money problem removed entirely. Cincinnati, 3 weeks ago. A large group of Filipino fans waited outside the gates for more than an hour before they opened. These people had tickets already, paid for, in hand, valid. And they still stood outside for an hour because experience had taught them that having a ticket and having a seat are not the same thing. Toronto, 2 weeks before that. The Canadian Open made a late change and moved her match to the show court for the night session. It sold out almost immediately. Not slowly. Almost immediately. Melbourne, Cincinnati, Toronto. 3 tournaments, 3 continents worth of travel, 3 different price points. In none of them was affordability the failure. In all 3 of them, the failure was seats. So now go back and reread the news from this week with that in your head. The City of New York and the USTA just released 1,000 additional tickets into the first 10 days of the tournament. That is not a solution to the Eala problem. That is 1,000 more people walking into a building that has already demonstrated at 4 separate tournaments this season that it does not have enough room for the people who want to watch her. The city did not relieve the pressure. The city added to it. And here is the part that turns this whole thing upside down. That is good news for her, because pressure is the only thing that has ever moved a court assignment. Nobody at Toronto woke up and decided to be generous. They looked at demand data, realized they had a sellout scheduled into the wrong building, and moved it. That was not respect. That was a revenue correction made under time pressure. Tournaments do not respond to affection. They respond to congestion. So a program designed to make the U.S. Open more accessible to New Yorkers has, entirely by accident, loaded another 1,000 mobile bodies into exactly the 2 weeks where the sport is arguing about whether this player is being scheduled correctly, and every one of those bodies can walk to whichever court she is on. The city did not buy Filipino fans a discount. The city handed them leverage and did not know it was doing it. That is the flip. And I want to know if you actually buy it, because this is the part where reasonable people split. Some of you are going to say I am reading way too much into a ticket program that has nothing to do with her. Some of you were standing in one of those lines in Melbourne or Cincinnati and you already know exactly what I am describing. Tell me below which one you are. And be honest, because that argument in the comments is more useful than anything the tennis press has published about her this week. Now, that is a big claim, and I would not blame you for wanting proof. So let me show you what happens every single time a tournament has had to make this exact calculation about her. It has happened before, in America, and the last time it did, they chose her over a 7-time Grand Slam champion. Miami, earlier this year. Eala got the opening match on the stadium court. Venus Williams, a South Florida resident with 7 Grand Slam titles, was put on the grandstand. An American event, on American soil, made that call on purpose. And tournaments only make that call for one reason. It is not respect. It is not narrative. It is seats. Somebody in that scheduling office had 2 names and a finite number of large rooms, and they concluded that Eala moved more people in Miami than Venus Williams did. That is a brutal sentence about an American icon, and it is also just what the decision says. And remember when that happened? That was before the WTA title, before the top 20, before the seeding. She was already outdrawing legends when her ranking still said she should not be. Second piece of evidence. The summer. Washington, Montreal, Cincinnati. Packed crowds at her matches in all 3 different cities, 3 different organizing bodies, 3 different ticket markets, 3 different price structures. Same result every time. That kills the easiest objection to everything I have told you, which is that this is just one loud community in one city. It is not. 3 separate organizations independently ran into the same wall in the same 8-week stretch. And then there is the third piece, which happened 48 hours ago, and it is the strongest one. Thursday night. Fan week at Flushing Meadows. The tournament had not started. No ranking points, no prize money, no consequences of any kind. Eala played 1 exhibition set against Iva Jovic as part of the stars of the Open event. Jovic won it, 6-3, and I am telling you that score because some channels have gotten it wrong, and I would rather be right with you than exciting. Arthur Ashe Stadium was nearly full for it. The largest tennis stadium ever built, close to capacity, for a match that decided absolutely nothing. Now go back to the top of this video. If a meaningless exhibition nearly fills that building before the tournament opens, then 1,000 additional tickets is not a welfare program. It is 1,000 more people entering a bottleneck that already exists. And here is the population context, stated accurately, because this is where other channels lie to you. Almost 50,000 people of Filipino descent live in the Queens area, roughly 15 to 20 minutes from the tennis center. That is a community population. That is not a ticket forecast, and anyone who tells you 50,000 people are showing up is inventing a number. The point is not the size. The point is the removal of every barrier. In Melbourne, they needed a flight. In Dubai, they needed a flight. In Miami, they needed a flight. In New York, they need a subway swipe. And the city just cut the price of entry for 1,000 of them. Now let me give you the thing I have not seen a single outlet connect. And it is why I made this video. Look at the dates on the ticket program. The sessions covered run from August 30th through September 8th. That window is not random. That is first round, second round, third round, and into the fourth. That is precisely the stretch where a 17th seed is most likely to be scheduled onto a smaller court, because that is when the draw is fullest and the show courts are most contested. The city dropped 1,000 mobile tickets into the exact window where the mobility matters most. Combine the two facts. 1,000 people who cannot be steered, released into the 10 days where steering is hardest. The USTA now has a block of ticket holders it cannot route, in the week it most needs to route people. Nobody planned that. It is just true. So here is my prediction, and I want you to hold me to it. If Eala wins her opening match, the odds that she gets moved up to Armstrong or Ashe for the second round are very high. And when it happens, watch how it gets reported. It will be framed as a reward. She played well, she earned the big stage, lovely story. It will not be a reward. It will be a capacity decision made by people who watched the crowd flow in round 1, looked at the walkways, and realized they do not have a comfortable alternative. Nothing about this player's schedule over the next 10 days is going to be about tennis. It is going to be about how many bodies are standing in a corridor, which leaves exactly one number in this whole story that nobody can give you yet, and it lands within about 48 hours. So here is the honest answer to the question I opened with. The mayor did not do this for Alex Eala. There is nothing in that ticket program with her name on it, and anyone telling you otherwise is guessing at motives nobody has stated. But the effect of it is absolutely about Alex Eala, and the Filipino-American press understood that faster than the tennis press did, which is why they had the story framed correctly within an hour while everyone else was writing about a discount. They were not chasing a hot name. They were reading a mechanism. And that mechanism now sits inside her file at this tournament. She walks into the main draw as the 17th seed, against a qualifier whose name is still not decided, because qualifying is still being played. On paper, she is a good player in a good position. Off paper, she is carrying something the ranking cannot express, which is a crowd that has already forced 3 separate tournaments to change how they operate. Seat pressure is part of her scouting report now. It just is not written down anywhere. And zoom out one more level, because this is bigger than one player and one city. Tournaments sell tickets. They do not sell rankings. What the last 12 months proved is that a country with no tennis infrastructure, no domestic tour, and no history of producing champions can fill buildings on 4 continents. Every tournament director on earth is writing that down right now, and not because it is a beautiful story, because it is a market they have never priced. I started this video with a $100 ticket. I want to end it by naming what that ticket actually sells, because it is not a seat. Seats are the thing everyone argues about. What it sells is permission to move. And permission to move is the only thing a crowd needs on the day an organizer puts their player in the wrong room. Which brings us to the one thing left. The order of play does not come out until the night before. Right now, there is a small group of people at Flushing Meadows looking at a grid, and one line on that grid decides whether the argument of the last 10 days was justified or overblown. Nobody can tell you yet which court she gets. I am covering that assignment the moment it drops and what the crowd actually does when it gets there, so subscribe and you will have the answer the same hour I do instead of finding out from a clip 3 days later. Put your guess in the comments first. Ashe, Armstrong, or an outside court? I want it on the record before Saturday. Then we find out who was right.